持香港，香港呢個單權，為我滾持香港，香港呢個單權。
支持佢係一個，即係等大家都有個力量去繼續行呢條路咯。
我想問下，而家現場觀眾有冇邊個相信香港會有人搞港獨㗎？
我同你都係中國人，都係亞洲人，都係人嚟㗎，我唔係中國人啊！
而家係中國人都唔承認喺度。
我唔係中國人，我係香港人。
香港根本就冇港獨，香港亦都冇人勾結外國勢力。
Where the people came together in assembly to vote on issues. And in fact, the big problem of that direct democracy was, of course, that it had nothing to do with human rights, it had nothing to do with division of power, it had nothing to do with a long-time process, but it was ad hoc at the place in assembly that the people had the right to have a say. But the big change and the big difference was also, of course, that at that time very few people were part of the people. In fact, just a few percentage of the people in Athens. So the idea of democracy was there, but it wasn't realized in a way that really the people were all involved living at this place.
Well, again, I apologize. It used to be a very quiet kind of thing. Then, especially for some places that has no tradition of direct democracy, and they often think that they have their own high principle, and they know best about policy, and therefore refuse to give up their power. Or even when we try to promote civil referendum and try to lobby some of our legislators to publicly announce that they would vote according to the result in advance. And they would be so concerned, what if the voting result is different from their standpoint? Then they would be obliged to vote against their own will. So how do we persuade politicians to give up their power first? Second is that, worst of all, it's the voters' reluctancy. The people think that they had taken the pain to vote in a general election to choose their representative already. So they trust the decision to the politician that they elect. So why should they be bothered by this pack of politicians? They think that the politicians are not diligent enough to make a good decision. And why should they go back to them to ask them how to vote? So how do you persuade both politicians and voters for embracing direct democracy instead of sticking to the representative democracy?
Yes. No, I mean what you're describing is the understanding of by democratizing democracy, everybody will lose. I mean, the elected politicians will lose part of their power, and the citizens will lose part of their freedom not to participate. And in fact, it's you can of course see it in this perspective when you, in a way, try to misunderstand the very idea of democracy. Because again, I mean, what's democracy about? Democracy is about the rule of the people, which is obviously it's something which is idealistic idea, but it's maybe the best of all the idealistic idea we have been provided in the world until today, when you are compared with other ideologies which are providing for certain small minorities to rule over the majorities.
They really feel obliged to trigger this de facto referendum with the resignation. But to get things straightened, then how should we fine-tune the message so that we could have the best of both?
It's difficult. I mean, what I heard, the idea that people would resign to trigger an election is, of course, obviously it would maybe approach some people and make people understanding that this is an urgent issue, and create a sphere, a space for discussions on the Constitution. But it could, at the same time, maybe more prominently also trigger a backlash debate about the idea that people have voted for you for a certain mandate to fulfill this task, and then this person or this party says, no, we go back now at this point to the voters to renew the vote for me.
Signal which may be significant to the Chinese government, because it is the first time under the Republic history that there are a case, a countable votes that is opposing the central government, a decision of central government which has been made, which in the PRC. So it is something not really practical about referendum. We know that it's not referendum, but it's something that is a step to make a change of some really a real sense of what people think about what we are doing in the development of our political process, not even in Hong Kong, but even to want to give a message to the people in China. So in this sense, so how can we have? Is it better to make it to be closer?
To say the referendum triggered by the resignation, the maximum that we could spend is about $2 million Hong Kong dollar. Depends on district, and the fact is that we don't have that much money to spend. So if there are 5 resignations, that it could be up to the 10 million Hong Kong. But every candidate will be rewarded with $11 per vote, and I estimate that we could recover at least 50% of the election budget. So what we're talking about is 5 million Hong Kong dollar. But with civil referendum, we could have the 95% control. The only things that we cannot control is a natural disaster, typhoon or whatever, or the government suppression, a crackdown of the entire exercise. But other than the natural disaster and government's dramatic crackdown, we could control the exact voting date and time.
Know it. Political battles are actually a matter of winning the public opinion before you actually start the referendum. So the referendum is, or any vote or drastic action like resignations, etc., is actually not recommendable if you haven't won the public debate before. And public debate, unfortunately, that does depend on things like budget.
And now, one thing is that everything discussed in this room should be kept in confidence. That you could go out and tell your friends that that's what LSD think, but don't quote Trump, okay? It could be strangled. So
I think that is his personal view.
According to your knowledge and experience, have you ever seen any other country have political party or politician use resignation or by-election as a tool to trigger de facto referendum? And from that experience, did they achieve their goal?
Yeah, I mean, the way of trying to use your mandate as a pressing tool for creating attention to a problem is very usual. I mean, you have many parliaments where the opposition or some groups leave the parliament, try to avoid or try to boycott in a way to I mean, the reactive measures to stand up, to protest in different ways, they have been used, yeah, by resignations, by I'm not a specialist on just this, but I think what I haven't experienced really is to try to make to make such a resignation to a referendum. I mean, what it is more about maybe to try to make it to a form of a plebiscite. And again, I think it's important to make a differentiation between a plebiscite and a referendum. A referendum is about, in Germany, for instance, there is no constitution, it's just a basic law, because people have never had a say on their basic law until now. And you have a basic law here, you don't have a constitution yet.
We probably copy from the German model.
Yeah, that's a bad thing sometimes.
But actually, just now, Christian raised the point that, how much time do we have? Just now you mentioned, till January, for example, but let's say if we did want to conduct a civil referendum, let's say between now and the end of the consultation period, how long does it usually take to educate the public on civil referendum? Because I presume that we have to do a lot of publicity prior to the actual exercise and educate people on why we're doing this and, how does that vote count eventually? Well, last time we spent most of our time in educating the operator, but not the public.
Getting more personal and getting more dramatic. For example, they put the film on the YouTube, but it's very personal. It's not deal with like the a broad view of the public policy. So because in the past, I think this could be a future for us to advocate direct democracy by using the internet. But now I'm getting a bit worried that this become a platform or tool for some extremist group, or maybe also by the powerful people to try to promote their views. I think this is some flaws of the using the internet as a tool. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, it's not a flaw. It's just showing that instruments can be used by everybody. And obviously, when you have instruments which are usable by everybody, like the internet, and I mean, the good thing with the internet is that it, in a way, makes these ways of communication around the world, independently where you are, available to everybody, more or less. And of course, also to those people you don't like.
People always come first for Burno. Then whether it is a concern of the politician or a conflict in the community or the rigid concept of politics is held by people, especially in the pro-establishment, that Burno always bring himself back to the people, and I think that is the spirit of direct democracy that Gary and I should always bear in mind in our future exercise.
香港根本就冇港獨，香港亦都冇人勾結外國勢力。